Welcome to Coaching with Confidence and Care podcast, inspired by common topics that arise in coach training, mentoring, and supervision. I am Dr. Luba Desamidze, the founder of Upthink Coaching. I'm an active coach trainer, mentor, and supervisor. If you are listening, you're probably looking to deepen your skills as a coach. I hope this podcast will be a helpful resource for you and contributes to your journey. Hi all! In this podcast episode, I'm going to address a very popular question that emerges nearly in every observation of coaching sessions or recordings for mentor coaching. And that is establishing measures of session success with a client. Coaches often have a challenge with establishing those. They ask about the session goal, but it's the measures of success that actually help to align on deliverables from the conversation, so that a coach does not assume them, but lets the client define them. Before we dive into a reflection on the most common challenges and how to resolve them, I want to share a few points about the importance of measures of success in general. First of all, measures of success are not only there for the coach to know how the session is going, they serve the client. We want our clients to walk away from the session satisfied. What will make them satisfied to the right extent? This is what measures of success are about. What is it that they want to take away from the conversation so that it feels useful to them, practical and actionable, and gives them some peace of mind or some support in addressing the issue they're exploring? They need to understand this in the first place, not us. Secondly, some coaches, especially when they have shorter sessions, treat measures of success as a formality and feel they've already spent so much time exploring the goal that they want to move quickly into supporting the client in finding answers so that the client walks away with solutions. This often leads them to wrap up the agreement part, even if they haven't yet established clear measures of success, say after 10 minutes. We always assume as coaches that clients have the answers to all their questions. I totally agree. Clients do have the answers to all their questions. So what don't they have then if they have the answers? And my conviction is that very often they don't have the exact question that requires their answer. They don't always know what is a specific question that's bothering them. Where do they need to arrive to call the situation resolved? Once they're clear about measures of success, it's a lot easier for them to arrive at the answers because they know what they want. Now, as coaching is systemic work, I believe there's not much point in addressing only the issue of measures of success by itself, as if it were an isolated skill, because it's not. Let's take a broader view on which elements of the doing of coaching and the being of coaching this may be related to. I have observed that the challenge with measures of success is often related to the quality of presence and active listening skills. Sometimes a coach rushes the client, or a coach is distracted by their inner dialogue. They're not staying in the present moment, and they lose some curiosity. Listening beneath the words is extremely important too. Deep listening often allows measurable and meaningful goals to emerge authentically. Measurable goals are sometimes elusive because the coach has not fully explored what matters most to the client, emotionally or relationally. What signals do I notice as a mentor coach in those situations? One of them may be that coaches do not hear, or maybe they do not accept, those measures of success that their client is sharing. Maybe they have their own expectations about what measures of success should look like for that particular session goal. And then, when they don't hear what they expected to hear, and additionally, they miss what the client is communicating, especially if they communicate quite vaguely, they may start to feel lost. And this is about the ability to meet the client where they are, to really get curious about how they see the story and not trying to interpret anything. To me, the state of presence has clear somatic signals. You are relaxed but alert, in contact with your body, emotions, energy of the session. On the opposite end, tension may signal an intense inner dialogue or certain expectations. distracting thoughts like, we are running out of time, we should already be working towards the resolution, and we still haven't got the measures of success. The client cannot articulate them because they don't know what they want from this. Should I persevere, or should I enter the next session stage? Well, maybe I am exaggerating a bit here, but you see, this example leads us to another skill and common challenge with measures of success. And to me, it is coaches' capacity to hold uncertainty and for how long they can hold this uncertainty. Sometimes coaches feel conflicted. Should I serve the client or should I serve the session? Should I kind of manage it in a better way? Should I keep a meaningful conversation with the client, exploring and discovering? Or should I be narrowing this down so that we can agree on something small? Am I doing it right or am I doing it wrong? This inner dialogue is quite distracting, especially at the agreement setting stage. Develop this capacity in order to let the client's process fully unfold. Some coaches avoid asking too many questions around the session agreement because these questions sound a bit too formal or robotic to them. Many times I've heard an opinion that it feels like there should be a checklist. I need to ask what the topic is, then partner with a client to identify measures of success. And then I also need to discuss whether or not they are important and in what ways they are important. And then I kind of need to partner with them around where we start or what's holding them back so that we start to approach it from the most productive angle. Well, eventually, what happens many times is that either coaches ignore measures of success for the session and just, move forward with the session goal intuitively, or even define the measures of success for the client. Well, let me normalize something. It takes two to tango. It is very normal for a client not to know what they want from the session, and that's why they come to a session. And it's normal for a coach to have emotional reactions. You know that there are supportive spaces for you to explore this, like mentor coaching and supervision. See this as an opportunity to stretch your coaching muscles. To make this episode very practical, let me share some of the approaches that you can consider to elicit measures of success from the clients. And remember that our intention in this particular instance is to measure the success of the conversation, not the actual change in the client's lives. That's a different layer of our conversation, which happens before the session goal is even established. And the conversation about measures of success happens after the session goal has been established. So let's think about measures of success more broadly. Do not think that they will only come in form of action steps. If a client says, by the end of the session, I want to get 2 to 3 action steps, of course, these are very specific measures of success, but do not expect that each client will necessarily name actions or things to do as measures of success. For example, they can talk about an internal shift by the end of the session, and you can ask questions like, by the time we finish today, what would feel different inside you? Or when the session ends, what shift would you like to notice? Or what inner change would tell you this conversation helped? We can use different wording depending on what the client says. If internal shift is not relevant, maybe you could elicit measures of success related to a felt sense of completion. What is the client's definition? That the session was enough. At the end of the session, what would help you see that was useful? Or what would leave you feeling complete with today's conversation? How would you know that we used this time well? Some clients cannot say what makes them feel complete from the session, but they know what makes the session incomplete for them. In this case, success may be clarified by naming what must not be missing for them. And if they tend to show this type of motivation, which we sometimes call away from motivation, you can ask questions like, if the session ended and something felt unfinished, what would that be? Or what would you be disappointed not to have touched on today? Or what needs to happen so that you don't leave feeling there's more left unsaid? Sometimes this could be the way to approach it. Some people don't know what they want or can't articulate it clearly, but they know what they do not want. Meet your clients where they are. If they talk about an internal state, help them measure success around their internal state change. If they talk about actions, then partner to measure success through actions. Pay attention to the signal words or some keywords that they're using in their sessions, because then you can integrate their words in your questions. Some clients are really focused on learning or insight, so you can ask about measures of success linked to learning, like what would you want to learn or realize by the end of the session? What would you want to see that you don't see yet? And then these can fit quite organically in sessions where the conversation goes in that direction. Well, clarity as a session goal is very common, especially if you work at above ACC level and you deal with topics around awareness, transformation, identity, and you'd have clarity inquiries quite often. So if a client wants to get clarity from the session, you could ask questions like, which specific aspect do you want to be more clear about by the end of today? Or what specifically do you hope to understand better when we finish? Or just very simple but great, what does clarity look like for you? So enhance your ability to hear and recognize some keywords related to measures of success, and then reconfirm whether you've heard or understood them correctly. So here's what you can pay attention to. First, listen actively for implicit end-of-session language when a client says phrases like, I want to walk away with something, or I need to leave feeling something, or if I could just something. Like, I want to walk away with a different perspective. This can already point to the ideas that your client has about their intentions for this session. Sometimes clients name emotional resolution cues like emotional relief, grounding, confidence, or steadiness that they want by the end of the session. And they may say something like, I want to feel less tense by the time we finish, or I want to feel more settled or grounded. I want to leave with a sense of ease. You can always reconfirm whether this is what they want from the session. Listen for contrasting statements as well. When your clients compare before and after, sometimes they may not appear in the same sentence, so keep the whole wider context in mind, not only the most recent sentence. Maybe they say earlier in the session that they're feeling overwhelmed, and then they say they want to leave with a clearer head. You can put these together to reconfirm whether you understand them correctly by saying something like, so you're saying that you are feeling overwhelmed and that leaving with a clearer head would mean success today. Did I get that right? Or maybe early in the session, they say that they were confused, and then they say they want to get clarity. Again, you can put these together for them and say, so moving from confusion to clarity is what you want from this session. Is that correct? What does clarity mean in this case? And let them respond to this. Listen specifically for signal words that indicate that the client is talking about completion or relief. Maybe they say something about closure or resolution, getting something off their chest, sorting something out. Build on this and reconfirm it with them. See if you need to ask any further questions, any follow-up questions to make this even more specific. Some people can't articulate it clearly with words, which is totally fine, but they can tell you what shift they want to experience. For example, what somatic shift or embodied shift they want to experience. They may reference body states like tension, heaviness, tightness, or energy. They could say something like, I just don't want to feel tight, And then you can follow up on this and ask, so feeling less tight in your body by the end would tell you this session helped? Or if your body feels lighter when we finish, would that mean success for today? If your clients do not share much about their needs or their expectations from the session, then of course we'd ask them very direct questions. And again, we can ask questions in different ways. First, you can focus on observable changes rather than abstract concepts. Ask for concrete signs or behaviors and integrate the client's words. So you could ask a question like, if this session were a success for you, what would you notice yourself thinking differently by the end? Or what would you notice about changes in your inner talk by the end? What would be different in how you respond by the end of the session that would tell you the conversation was useful for you? Then you can also explore the client's feelings or experiences. For example, you said that now you feel confused about the situation or you feel very frustrated. How do you want to feel by the end of our conversation? What emotional shift would tell you this session worked for you? What feeling would you like to leave the session with? So this may work with people who are quite attuned to their own feelings. Emotional indicators will often lead naturally to measurable behaviors. If your session supports the client in changing their emotions towards the situation, well, if this is what they want, then they will find it easier to come up with some specific action points after reaching their emotional or affective measures of session success. Last but not least, a common way that I'm sure that all of you know about is using scaling questions. For example, on a scale of 1 to 10, how confident or ready do you feel right now? And how confident, ready, or any other word, do you want to feel by the end of the session? Or how much clarity do you have now on a scale of 1 to 10? And where do you want to be with your clarity to say that our session was successful for you? A scale can help evaluate progress tangibly, and it works especially well with abstract concepts. You do not have to use the 1 to 10 scale. There are many creative ways to ask this question, this type of questions. For example, if this issue had a volume level, where is it now? And where would you want it to be when we finish? Or you can integrate your client's words, asking a question like, on a scale of very stuck to clear enough, where are you now? And where would you like to be by the end? Or on a scale of uncertainty to confidence, what would success look like by the end of this session? Or on a scale from overwhelmed to grounded, where are you right now and where do you want to land? To sum it all up, I want to invite you to take away this one thing. Establishing measures of success is not a technical add-on to a coaching session, and it's not a box to tick for credentials or assessments. It is a relational practice that requires presence, patience, and a willingness to stay with not knowing. Measures of success emerge when we truly listen, when we slow down enough to hear what matters to the client beneath the words, and when we trust that clarity will come from the client's process, not from our urgency to move forward. When we stay connected, curious, and open, contracting around success becomes a natural extension of the conversation. And maybe this is the final reflection. Working with measures of success often mirrors our own relationship with uncertainty, time, and results as coaches. The more comfortable we are holding space without rushing, the easier it becomes for clients to discover what they really want from the session. So see this not as something to perfect, but as something to practice. Let it be an ongoing inquiry in your coaching practice, something that you keep exploring with kindness towards yourself. When measures of success are truly co-created, they do not just guide this session, but deepen the work itself. These are the reflections I want to leave you with as we close this episode. In the next episode, we'll explore the art of asking powerful questions. We'll focus on what makes a question truly impactful, how it can open new perspectives, and how it can touch the deeper, often unspoken parts of a client's thinking. If you ask yourself, how can I ask better or deeper questions? Do not miss it. Just a reminder that new podcast episodes are released every 2 weeks and alternate with our YouTube interview series, Conversations with Coaches, where I speak with practitioners who use various niches and approaches about how they actually work, think, and make sense of their practice. If you are interested in developing your coaching beyond tools and techniques into relational depth, reflective capacity, and psychologically informed work, our ICF-accredited programs open again in spring 2026. You'll find all the details on the website if you want to explore in your own time at upthinkcoaching.com. It's upthinkcoaching altogether.com. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm always open to thoughtful professional conversations, and I work one-to-one through mentor coaching and supervision for coaches who want a more reflective space to think about their work. That's all for today. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode.